to finish up our hair rig, we only have a few things to do. We'll need to make sure our hair joints are connected back to our skeleton, and we'll also need to build animation controls. So let's get started. So here are our hair joints. They've all been reoriented and parented. So just to show you a few of these that may have been confusing, if we were to take a look at the root of the left bang, you see that I use a value of 90 for its joint orient x-axis. For the center bang, about 130. And then for the right bang, about a value of negative 180 worked well. But the others were really straightforward. Okay, well, let's go ahead and clean up all of these local rotation handles. We'll head over to our outliner. We'll grab all of our roots. And with them selected, we'll use our select -high command to grab the entire chain. So with all of them selected, we can now go ahead and turn off the LRAs. Okay, now going through again, selecting each root, just the roots, let's go ahead and parent to the top of the head. So we'll parent to BE head. Great, so now they are connected to our character's skeleton. Now how about animation controls? We don't want to get too complicated with animation controls for our hair. Remember, we're going to build FK controls, so why not use the joints as our control objects and build, let's say, shape nodes. That way when we hide our joints, we can still see our curve shapes and grab them for animation. So that's the approach we'll take. So this is going to be pretty quick to build. A lot faster than, let's say, creating a secondary control that matches the orientation of the joint that is then parented to another. That's just more nodes that we have to worry about, and extra steps that really don't need to be taken. So let's go ahead and get started. We will, of course, be relying on scripts to get this done a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and add a few more scripts to our shell. The next script that we're going to add is a tool that allows us to parent shape nodes. So I'll go ahead and head over to our shelf editor and clear everything out. Choose File, Load Script, head over to our script folder and choose the Parent Shape tool, Simple. I've built another before in our Character Rigging for Production course. This one is more simplified because instead of having a pop-up window appear, what we do is we simply parent the first selected object to the second selected. So it's all explained here. And what I've also done in the code is added a size function that looks for the size of our selection and says, okay, if it is not equal to 2, then go ahead and show this warning, must select 2 objects. However, if the size is equal to 2, then go ahead and run the following commands. So that's what this code does. That's unique from the other code that was used to parent shapes. All right, so let's go ahead and highlight everything here. And we'll go ahead and add it to the shelf. And again, if you'd like to learn more specifically on what is happening here, everything is commented out. But just to give you the gist of it, what we do is we parent the object first to, let's say, the bone, and then we freeze transforms on the child. That way, when we parent the shape, there's no offset. All right, so after we freeze transformations, we then look for our shape node. So that's what the list relatives command does. So we look for the shape node of the first selection, and we parent the shape relative to our bone, which is the second selection. Doesn't have to be a bone. And then we grab the transform node, which is the first selection. That's what we grab by default when we select an object. So we grab the first selection and we get rid of that transform node. And we're at the end of this, we're going to select our bone object, and we're just left with that and the shape node parented to it. So that's what this code does. All right, so at this point we can go to our shelf editor and rename that tool to the parent shape tool. I'll go ahead and copy that, use that for the tooltip, and we can go ahead and rename this to PSHP. I'll save the shelf out. All right, let's go ahead and load in our next code. The next code we'll use is going to be the control curve we'll use. So it's a diamond shape control. Go ahead and open that up. So what I've done here was I've outlined an octahedron shape. And then once we do that, Maya will give us the code used to create that. No need to turn on echo all commands. So here's that code here. So I've just tied it to a variable. And the next what the code does is it centers the pivot on the curve that we create. And then the last thing it does is it renames it to something more convenient. So this one is renamed to DMD curve 01. And as we create them, it will increase incrementally, the name. All right, let's go ahead and highlight this. Add that to the shelf. Go to the shelf editor, and we can go ahead and rename this to our diamond shaped curve. I'll go ahead and copy the name here, paste that as our tooltip, and rename this to, let's say, DCRV for diamond curve, save shelf. Okay, just a few more to load in. And we'll learn how to set all of these controls up, which won't really take hardly any time. So let's go ahead and, again, head over to File, Load Script. We'll add our Match Transform tool. This is to align our curve object to the position and orientation of our joints. So let's go ahead and open that up. So what we do here, at the top, we have a heads-up message that kind of gives the instructions on how to run this. So here's the command, heads up. And here's what it prints out. So in our viewport, what we'd see is we first need to select the target and then the source. All right, so in our case, what we do is we first grab what object we'd like to connect, followed by the object that is our source object to connect to. Well, we find our selection first, and then we do a parent constraint, and then we find the parent constraint and remove it, and then the last thing we select is the object that we have connected. Let's go ahead and highlight this, add that to the shelf. I'll go back to load, and we'll load just one more for selecting shape nodes. So let's go ahead and add that. This is to get in and recolor those shapes after. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. We find our selection, and then we look for the shape of our selection and select it. Simple as that. So let's go ahead and highlight this and add that to our shelf. All right, so what I'll now do is just go back to the shelf editor and go ahead and rename the others. So the Match Transform tool, we'll call that Match, just to be specific, position _ orientation tool. I'll go ahead and copy that, paste that, use it for the tooltip, and rename this to MTT for Match Transform Tool. And the last one is our shape selection. So this is our shape selection tool. Copy that, use that as the tooltip, and rename this to SHP, and save the shelf out. All right, so though we've taken some time to put this all together and to explain what these do, again, things are going to go by a lot faster this way. So here's how we're going to prepare these animation controls. We first will build our curve. See, it's over to the side. That's where I built it. All right, so from there, we need to now match it to a bone. All right, so in our case, let's go ahead and start with the side of the hair. Let's go ahead and shift select that bone and use our match transform tool. You'll see that the shape is now linked. Only it's in its position and orientation. It's not actually connected to it. We've just aligned it to that joint. So from there, we can go ahead and scale this shape down. What I'd recommend doing is after scaling this down, let's say to about 0.035, I think that would work. All right, so after we've managed to scale it down, instead of creating a brand new curve, just go ahead and duplicate from this one. Just duplicate that, move that over, and go ahead and use that for the next bone. So again, we're only connecting these to our bone objects. We're not connecting them to our end joint. All right, so after the curve is in place, what we then do is we go in and we parent the shape node of our first selection, which is our curve, to the next selection, which is our bone. So let's go ahead and use our parent shape tool. You can see now the shape has been parented and the transform node has been removed. So now to recolor this, it's just a matter of grabbing the joint and using select shape. So that's going to again find the shape node connected to our selection and select the shape node. We know on the left side we've been using a color of blue, so we can go ahead and reassign that color. Now lastly, you may consider renaming your shape node just to be more specific, to kind of clean things up a little bit more. So I'll show you how to do that. But before that, the last task will be to go ahead and clean up our translate, scale, and visibility channels. We'll right click and choose lock and hide selected. And then we can have these stored in our upper body sub-character set. So I've activated it at the bottom of Maya. We can now go ahead and highlight our rotate channels and choose character, add to character set. So that's going to be the process for the rest of these. Again, we don't need to concern ourselves with the very end. We just need to add these, attach them to the joints that will actually deform the hair. At the back of the hair, we'll use a color of light blue, as we've used for our center control objects. And then, of course, on the right side, we'll use red. Now, for renaming our shapes, what we could do is use code, and I believe I've added that to your script folder. Let's go ahead and see if we can load that in. Here we are, rename shape node. So if you'd like to, feel free to add this. I'll choose open. What this does, just to take a look at this, is it's going to rename your shape node to the name of your selection with a prefix of SHP. So again, we find our shape node, and then we create a variable that stores our rename command. It says rename our shape node to this prefix plus the name of our first selection or our selected object. And then the last thing it does is it selects that object. All right, so I'll go ahead and highlight this, add this to the shelf. Go to the shelf editor, scroll down. This is going to be renamed to our rename shape tool. Again, you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but I find it very helpful. I'll copy the name, use that as the tooltip, and rename the icon to RSHP and choose Save All Shelves. So watch this. We can now select our bone, run the code, and notice our shape node has been automatically renamed, which saves us a lot of time. So we have a few tools to work with, but in the end, this is going to save us a lot of time. So you can see how many steps that we have to take. And had we not used scripts, this would probably double that amount of time. All right, so make sure to go through and connect your control objects and make sure by the end that you have tied them to your sub-character set for the upper body. But that's basically going to finish the lesson. Okay, so we have our animation controls in place. We made great progress. So by the next lesson, we're ready to start on our belt rig.